and you'll have to forgive me for this because I don't have dark mode whenever we translate something. A South Korean court ruled that Dark and Darker did not infringe copyright, but Nexon must pay 200 million yuan in compensation for infringement of trade secrets. This title is misleading. It's not what it says. Ironmace has to pay Nexon. According to foreign news reports such as South Korea's This Is Game, the Seoul South District Court today made a first instance judgments on the legal dispute between Nexon and Ironmace. The results showed that both parties won part of the case and lost part. The court ruled that Dark and Darker did not infringe on the copyright of Nexon's P3 project. So that's the first part. Copyright infringement, no. But Nexon's request for compensation for infringement of trade secrets was supported by the court. So something about like the construction of the game and how it was constructed wasn't copyrightable, but it was like maybe the process was trade secreted and that's what they utilized. So something in there was close enough to where the court said like you couldn't have made this without this other game having existed first. It's not copyrightable, but it was like trade secret stuff. So Ironmace must pay Nexon 8.5 billion won, which is approximately 200 million yuan in damages. So that is approximately 6 million USD. It's like $5.85 million. Okay, so $6 million bucks. In this case, the 63rd Civil Division ruled that Ironmace's development, distribution, rental, or public transmission of Dark and Darker did not constitute copyright infringement. However, the court found that Ironmace had violated trade secrets and ordered Ironmace to pay the 8.5 billion in damages and retroactive interest at an annual rate of 12%. In addition, the court ruled that Nexon should pay 20% of their litigation costs and Ironmace should bear 80% of Nexon's litigation costs. So they're about like $7 million. Initially, Nexon accused Ironmace of using the development resources without authorization during the development of Dark and Darker and filed lawsuit, blah, blah, blah. The case was really scheduled to be sentenced on October 24th of 2023, but the court held additional debate and first instance judgment on February 13th, 2024. So there you go. I'm assuming that Ironmace will end up appealing it or whatever, or try to, but the initial judgment is that they have to pay them. This is actually like, in the way, like for news being what news is, right? This isn't the worst that it could have gone. Like they could have forced Ironmace to shut down. Nexon could have ended up owning part of them. For them having to just pay a fine, even though, you know, they gotta compensate Nexon for it, that is not the worst case scenario at all, you know? Like, it could have been way, way worse than what it ended up being. Yeah, it's Korean won, dude. It's 6 million. 8.5 billion won is 6 million, 5.85 US dollars. 5.85 million. So it's like that plus their legal fees is probably somewhere around like 7 million total with the interest and all. So assuming that they have it in the checking account to be able to like stroke the check and pay them, or they also have Ironmace also has like investors. You know, the investors could end up coming to their aid and pay them. You know what I mean? The good news is that, like, the game isn't going anywhere. So we have that at least for the time being. What I find most interesting about this, though, is that the police, right? The agency that the police used, they used some third-party outfit, some disinterested third party to evaluate all of the code and everything. And they came back and recommended not to indict for either one of those counts. But for whatever reason, the tribunal decided to award Nexon the money, which is really interesting to me, because like the experts basically said like that nothing was stolen. It doesn't make sense to indict on either one of these, but they did it anyway. So that's interesting to me. I wonder why. I'd love to see like the actual like if there was an abstract for the ruling, like their reasonings behind it. I would love to read it, but I don't know if it would. I don't know how Korea works. I don't know if like in South Korean court like that stuff becomes public domain or not. Should have let Nexon have the game as much as they run it into the ground. I mean, personally, I would like to be able to play, a dungeon crawling video game. You know what I mean? I'd like to be able to play a dungeon crawling video game, not have like the idea of a dungeon crawling video game something that I can wax poetically on because it's no longer in existence. Because this is literally the only game in town, except for Legacy, Steel, and Sorcery, which has come up now and hopefully will end up going somewhere. But they're so early that you don't really know. They got a couple of thousand players, but hopefully it picks up. SDF's ideas, but he was under Nexon development, failed. All right, so Synthbreak, how can I put this? Put it like this, right? Let's say you're a chemist working for Coca-Cola, right? And you know how the Coke syrup is made, right? But you don't take the Coke syrup recipe, right? Like you're not taking that recipe, but you decide that you're going to start your own like soda joint, right? And you end up implementing the same process that you learned at Coca-Cola to make the syrup that you're using for your own like cola product in your own like little shop, right? What they're saying is that the trade secrets are not only like the recipe, it's also like the process by which, or the building blocks that were used in a specific order, specific way to build it, right? So it's not copyright infringement because of the game's existence, right? They didn't take Project P3 and go like, we're going to make this, but we're going to do it over here, right? They're not making Coke over again. What they're doing is in like trying to rebrand it or whatever. But they did, apparently, the way that it looks is the way that certain things were assembled, if you want to think about it that way, was enough where the court said like, well, you're going to have to pay them for this, because they wouldn't have known how to construct it the way that they did had SDF not worked at the Nexon shop or whatever, is what it reads like. Now, I could be completely fucking off. Maybe it's something other than that, but that's kind of like the idea that I'm getting from it. But I mean, it's gonna cost him $6 million plus legal fees for Nexon's attorney. Like, whatever. Like, I mean, like, that's why they're getting paid, right? Like, that's adequate enough compensation. It wouldn't be the first time something like this has happened. Hands are clean. They can move on. No big deal. Being a software engineer with an NDA and then using the framework to build a competitor, right? They also could have, like, depending on how Korean laws are written, right? Like, SDF was working and Terry were both working with an NDA at the time. Now, in the United States, the NDA doesn't fly, because in the United States, the rule is, especially where they were trying to litigate it out on the West Coast in the Ninth Circuit Court, the rule for NDAs, even when they got filed originally, was like you had to be a highly compensated employee with like a C-level executive position and be compensated like more than $162,000 a year, and they were not that. So it would have been thrown out right away. Like, the NDA doesn't fly. But in Korea, it could be a different animal, right? So, like, violating the NDA by itself and then going and starting their own studio on the side could have been enough for the court to go, well, you violated your NDA, so you got to pay them. You know, it may not have been anything other than that. They could have just been, like, the violation of the NDA contract, and then they started the studio, and then the studio had to cough up the cash because they did it too soon. You know, it could be any of that shit. If the company told the engineers to scrap the framework because it won't work, and then the engineer said, "Fuck it, we're leaving. We believe in the framework." Yeah, I mean, like, in that case, like, it still ends up being the property of the mothership. Like even if they went and said like, we're throwing it in the archive, they still own it. You know, like if I take the old GPU sitting up on the shelf back there and I put it in a bin and put it in you know, my closet, that doesn't mean that, like, you know, my kid can take it and go sell it on eBay, right? Like, I still own it. It's still mine. Anyway, yeah, so I mean, it sucks that they got to cough up the money, but it could have been way worse. So I guess the moral of the story is the game stays right where it is. So that's good. That's good.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready to get in there. I'm ready to get active, and I'm ready to be like swimwear. I'm gonna be a fucking G-string. I am gonna be between the cheeks. Right.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some details.
He's going for anal floss.
Go, 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 go.
Oh, I don't know where you're going, but all right, Onepeg.
Oh, I'm getting gangbanged. They're low. They're low. They're low. That fucking wizard's hurting.
It's a warlock, and he's dead.
Oh, all right, the warlock is hurting. Wait, he was still alive? Oh god, I didn't realize the rogue was still there.
I can't believe the rogue is still alive after those stabs, though. I hit him 4 times, I think.
Oh! Oh, Varzo!
Oh!
Better be ready for it.
The 1 HP!
Who needs more than one?